geen share of zo?
Normaal.
Maar normaal, ja. Ik ga gewoon net eens terug naar YouTube. Nee, dat is YouTube Studio. Ik ga gewoon naar YouTube gaan.
De nulkijkers tot nu toe. Ja. Hm?
Ja.
Nee, nu wel.
Daar is de link.
Kun jij linkjes in de chat komen?
Ja, ik ben chat in aan het openen. Ik moest, om een reden was het moeilijk om hierin te vinden. Chat. Voilà. Ik verlaat Zoom hier, hè. Voilà. Want er is al 1 kijker.
Je bent niet gemute, hè? Dus je kunt ons horen.
Oh.
Wacht.
Hm?
Check de live link verbinding. Check the live link. Source.
Waar is een... Kill dit hier, ja.
Ja, kan heel goed zijn. Maar kijk eens.
Kun jij beginnen streamen op YouTube met
Is het al aan?
Dus je telefoon staan als een stream ding?
Dan moeten we ook hier op play doen eerst.
Nee, maar ik bedoel voor te streamen, hè? Niet voor andere mensen.
Ja, maar dat gaat voor een real engineer.
Ah. Kun je niet gewoon die NDI's first nemen in OBS?
Nee, die wordt wel gebruikt nu. Oké,
Als een desktop share, ja wel. Okay, so I'm going to hand the camera to Erik Joyce. Ah, thank you. Okay, so this is better. I start right away. We have connection.
We have audio? Yes, very good. Yes.
Okay. So, of course, this is a part of technology. Let's say the part where things fail, the art to fail. I'm sitting right in front of one of the first things that we did with, let's say, 3D or a kind of cheap 3D in virtual reality, and that was in '95. So I started drawing in kind of 3D panoramic images, and using these we made a performance. So we are in CREW's studio right now. This is some better light. We are a collective working with art and science. We are 5 right now. You can see in the distance, I'll bring it a bit closer. You see Ishtar, it's my colleague, artist, and here is Jonathan. And here is Ario. They are doing the support for the digital, let's say, part technology and being very creative as well. And in our studio, you can see we have a mocap system, a motion tracking system. So that is like 23 cameras, which you can use to then have performance or motion capture. And then right now we are using other systems, as you can see here, which are a bit easier to use, but much more expensive. So, okay, let's start and move to the so-called red room. Hello, Lorraine. So, just very quickly, going to the history of the things we did in the past. We started in 2003 by making our own kind of virtual reality, which was based upon video, omnidirectional video. Here on the table, and I think I can switch here. Yes, here on the table you can see the cameras that we used in the past. I have, in fact, this is the very first one. You have the cameras in front, they make an image of 180 degrees together. You have a mirror in the back and a camera, and they altogether made a 360 degrees image. And the way to look at it, we used these kind of headsets, well, custom made in a way that these were not really VR kind of goggles, but were made for television. Later on we used this type. The problem always was that how do you keep them fixed at the head? And that is why we were playing around with this kind of plastics as well. That gave interesting possibilities. Here you see another type of camera that we used. Since Lorraine is sitting there, I can use Lorraine. So the idea was, if you stay still, Lorraine, okay. So the idea was to have these set of cameras around your head. And the advantage compared to the other system was that, of course, you would be exactly in the middle of the omnidirectional image. And then these were ways to bring that together again with goggles. Okay, so we've been using this for performances. People were wearing backpacks like this. Also, we could stream these images later on. We have backpacks like this. And here we would then fix the cameras, and then you would have the effect that you would be able to have your own eyes, but you could also be able to exchange your eyes with those of someone else. That were the so-called head swap sessions, which were very interesting. So this is now part of the past, this video-based VR. We're moving now to another kind of VR, which Ishtar will explain you. And then to make the switch in between the two, I'm showing you now some drawings out of Philoctetus. That was a preceding work in which we used a handicapped, a completely paralyzed man. We were working with him for 3 years. He was lying on the floor, as you can see here. He had a kind of a robot, a pneumatic robot we had built in between his legs. The robot has a hand, a claw, and he needed to steer the robots to do things like take video cassettes and things like that. In order to do so, he had a screen in front of him, and also a way to manipulate a keyboard in front. For that, he had at his head several contacts which were fixed at his forehead, which were fixed at his mouth. So it was a very strange way of manipulating the robot. The point is, how do you manipulate the robot? So if you ask, for instance, the robot to take the glass near to you, how do you know where the hand needs to land? For that, we had a camera in the air. The interesting thing then was that it did not work. The idea then later on came to fix the camera at the claw itself. And that, strangely enough, is something the brain immediately understands. So if, exactly as McLuhan stated, if you make the camera or the image as a kind of an extension of the body understands it. So you could quickly do nearly anything with it. And the advantage, of course, and that was really like a prosthesis we got. that idea of having a medium like a prosthesis, that was the thing that moved us then later on to building these cameras and to make a kind of prosthetic body through VR. Okay, so I'll move again to the next part. Okay, Ishtar, I suggest.
Yes, we can. Yes, sorry for the short interruption. We had an audio problem, but it should be better now. So what you saw was an overview of the different parts of the beginning of CREW. And as Eric explained, so there's a paraplegic man who is controlling different machines and accessories from his horizontal position, and this way he is the driving force of the installation, and the entire installation performance becomes like a prosthesis. I think we can say that. And so from there on, the medium was developed into a form of VR, that is to say video VR. We will show the difference in a minute. And then one of the things that was developed was RITCS and crash, and I think you can say something maybe about the position of the people and how this...
Yes, so in the beginning we had people affixed to tables, and that was in order to avoid that they would get dizzy or sick, which did happen at the very beginning quite a lot. That's completely gone, and so the point was we needed to get the people moving. Here you see images from head swap, so in fact these people were shaking their own hand, as it appears to them, and that is by switching their video streams. We did that also by long distance, by satellite, so someone walking on a building in Barcelona, the other one in Mons in Belgium. So these were kind of very interesting things to work with, also to in terms of how do you, in terms of dramaturgy, what does this mean? So who is the performer? Who is the actor? What are you? Here you see images of the parts where we started walking around. In the beginning this was still with cables and with big computers, but the amazing thing is that in the beginning it did work much stronger. This is the luxury of working with a media that nobody knows. So people were in the beginning nearly believing everything or anything they saw or they thought they were in. Like, this is such a part where we are playing with images that are real, images that are not real, playing with a camera that is out of their body, so they see themselves suddenly walking somewhere else. They are following sometimes themselves, sometimes in the past, sometimes in the present. So this way to play with reality was something that was really the main advantage of that very system, because of course it's based upon a photographic representation of the body, which is now completely different, as Ishtar will explain. You see, one of the things is that the actor, you saw Peter, the man with the beard, talking. In the beginning, how to say, we had to find out how do you work as an actor with this, and guiding someone, talking to someone all the time, proved to be extremely strong. This, by the way, this is the head swap by satellite. As you can see, this is another way of using head swap in combination with existing images. This was at MPAC in New York. And this is then another thing. This is a VR session for 55 people. By the way, you see Mia there. It's a while ago. It's 2011, and the idea also was to use the outside. So 55 people in groups of 5. So 11 people in, 11 people watching, 11 people at another occasion listening to something. So so you were all together in a performance in which sometimes you were the protagonist, and sometimes you were the person being watched. But the part that the fact that you are being part of it all the time, also in terms of immersion, really made it really made a difference. It felt as, how to say, it was a thing of being alone altogether, also, as we say sometimes. Here you see what they see, the immersions in the background. So you are walking outside of your body in a way. These kind of phenomena were intriguing. These are other versions whereby we made things for children after the tsunami in Japan, documentaries, a horror movie, this one. There are many applications. And then we moved again back into the digital with the same wish to move and to play with the image. These are experiments we did inside of the European research programs. So we are inside several European programs, not so much those of Creative Europe, but rather the technological ones. So from the technological side, so they like us in because we like to play with what is being developed and things like that. I won't go too much into detail of what you're seeing now. In fact, these were ways to prove that we see because we move and not because we have 2 eyes. So people are seeing 3D with only 1 eye, and it works perfectly well. So you don't need stereoscopy or something like that. We made performances on the stage using the motion capture technology. As you can see here, these are some experiments in terms of illusion. You can build extremely strong illusions by combining video mapping with dynamics, the space you're in, the objects you're in. That's the thing you saw. This is a live actor being, how to say, video mapped live on stage while she's walking and dancing around. And of course, if this appears in front of you at 10 meters, it's a very strange sight. It is really a kind of a thing which is in between. The need or the wish to have performances in which you have inside and outside and where people can participate went on. This is Hamlet's lunacy. So we build a whole construction in multiple performances around the time of Hamlet, the astronomy at the time of Hamlet, which is linked to Hamlet, and people 2 by 2 enter the immersive while others are following and witnessing and things like that. This is the path we will continue on.
Yes, so to pick up on that, so what you saw before, so the previous projects before this one and the stage ones, is that most of it happened in video VR. And for practical reasons, mostly because even though digital, like 3D VR, has been invented in the 80s, it was not available for people who are not big corporations or things like this, and the technology was very cumbersome. You couldn't transport it and things like that. And that changed around 2015 when there was a new hype in VR, which you have all noticed. And so this is when CREW kind of got into a transitionary phase with this production, for example, Hamlet's Lunacy. And in Hamlet's Lunacy, people are in VR, but you can see that there are still stage elements being included. There's an entire construction around VR, and it's not VR just as a thing in itself, but being externalized in different ways, which is one of the things we continue to work on, and that we will demonstrate later in this session, if everything goes according to plan. Now, the thing with the thing that Eric showed also before, the motion capture installation, it's used to analyze the movement of actors, and then when you record the movement of actors, you can represent them in 3D space. Now, the thing is that it's like a video recording, but in 3D. So people are moving, but they are static in a certain sense. You can't interact with them in any way. And I will show you in a second how we are looking at ways to more interactively experience actors in the 3D environment. So what maybe you've noticed, or maybe you have not picked up on it, but a very important part of all this is tracking. So tracking is the technology to situate a position and position a person or an object in space. And in 3D, in video VR, you can cheat. You record things which are already in motion and make the person do the same motion and have an illusion of movement. However, the advantage of 3D VR is that you can actually move through the space. And this can be very powerful. So here you will see a person who sees a representation of a table in 3D and then touches the table. Now the 3D space is very believable, even though it's just a very schematic point of view. And now you will see that people start to act in a different way. So you kind of have an influence on people which is different. And once you have established this type of trust, this type of illusion where the table is real, all of a sudden very abstract shapes like these lines and these patterns become real. And people will try to avoid them, climb under them, and things like that, which is very fascinating. So these are the type of things that you have to do to make the VR performative in a way. We started exploring these type of things also in the Soul Hacker project, which is our project in VR for treating patients with depression that you can see here. So the patients are in a dark atmosphere, and they throw crystal balls which spawn colorful trees, and this is informed by our colleagues of Brain. These are metaphors for getting out of depression. These are metaphors for making a dynamic change to their environment, and apparently this is of therapeutic value. So as Eric mentioned, how it works. So you have to imagine this will be like a slight introduction to how can we work with characters in 3D VR. So this is a question. There are traditional game techniques, which all of you know, but the thing is they're really optimized for games, and they come from a game kind of imagination and way of interacting. And this is, for example, one of the things we are working on, but we try to develop it in a way which is more suited to our project. So here you see the immersant who is in a space. Screen. So you see that there are avatars who are showing some kind of behavior. Yeah. Okay. And so this is so you see the person here is in the middle is the immersant and is being surrounded by groups of avatars. And if the person comes near, then all of a sudden he gets surrounded and they start gesticulating. So these are the type of things that we're working on to make it believable. But the problem is it's not believable. So when you're there in VR, you do not really believe those are people. And so a solution to that would be to have a person in a mocap suit, for example, as we will demonstrate later, come in and touch you or something like this, and this will make the interaction more believable. The next example is a bit more advanced. Here we have programmed an avatar to play hide and seek. So every time you come near the avatar, he will try to hide from your sight. So we were developing on these ideas, and then in interaction with our university partners at INRIA, we were discussing with them what their technology is and what they can do. And so they started making this thing called interaction fields, which is very interesting. It's a way to schematize social spaces. So you consider every person or object as a field of forces that interact. So you see all the little dots, they are people. The red dot is yourself, and the blue dot is a specially programmed avatar. So when you start going towards the blue dot will try to avoid you and hide behind other avatars, and so you have to look for them in a crowd, and the crowd will adapt to your actions. So these are tools that we use to make schematizations of future projects. Like, for example, we were working in Delirious Departures, a project we will demonstrate later, where we have an entire train station full of avatars, and they adapt to your behavior so that you feel that you're part of a real life situation. So this is kind of the idea of this research project, to have more complex way of interacting with digital representations of human beings, which can be used for example, we're working on a project where you're walking through large distances, and in these large distances you encounter avatars, but you don't know whether it's a person, whether it's someone in the same space, in another space, whether it's an automated avatar, artificial intelligence, and so forth. So this is what we are working on inside this project. So as Eric explained, we had with this video VR, we had this very strong points of embodiment, and in 3D VR, this is much less the case. In 3D VR, you feel kind of disconnected in a way, and so we're also researching ways to deal with that. And one of the ways we do that is by making artificial reconstructions of your body in the 3D space. So this, for example, is your body. It doesn't move exactly like you move, but it moves more or less in the way that you're moving. And this kind of duality, again, makes an ambiguity of is this your body, is this not your body, and how to deal with that, and so forth. So that was the static part of the lecture. I don't know if you have something to add or something to discuss.
Well, maybe, yeah. So one detail is, so if you are wondering why are the avatars so simple, that is on purpose. If you would try to give them better textures, that is of course a possibility, but you will, how to say, you quickly have the uncanny inside. And there's another thing is that if you keep the body in a very simple, the movement becomes very beautiful, and as humans we are not aware of it, but we are extremely good in recognizing moving patterns of each other. So if by motion capture we'd be capturing any of you, the others would immediately know who it is. You don't need, and the more abstract you make it, the better you see those patterns of moving. And we think that is a very strong thing, and it leads you in the opposite way to realism, because you know this is someone real and this is someone you know, instead of doing it by purely the visual, by recognizing the face and the textures.
Okay, so now we're going to demonstrate, hopefully successfully, one of our setups. So the thing is, we work in VR, and the problem is VR is not really stage friendly because you have goggles on, and it's private to the person, him or herself. And so, as you see, CREW was already working on different kinds of ways to integrate this on a scene and to exteriorize, to have camera images and so forth. And so now we're using the techniques which are being developed in virtual production for cinema and TV, where we integrate video cameras and live 3D footage at once. So my camera is back, that's amazing. And I think I am in the right zoom configuration. Is there still audio coming out? Yes. Ja, dus zet het atelier. Dus eerst. So yeah, so this is the normal video of our atelier, so that you saw before. And now, for example, we can add 3D to the atelier. That's not right. So you can see we have an overlay now. It's very buggy, but we have an overlay of 3D over our 2D. So this way we can start to build layers. We can start building different layers of reality and virtual reality layered on top of each other. And this is something that we're working on to make things more interesting for a public and to start playing with what is the notion of virtual reality, what is real, what is virtual with the 3D, the scanning and all these type of different things. Moet ik zoomen?
Ja, dan is het duidelijker.
So, yeah, now it corresponds better. So you see we have the environment corresponding to the thing. And who do we have there? It's Harry. So, for example, now if we go to full 3D, so you see we can start adding these layers. So what was the real, what is the virtual? It becomes blurry in a way. And so, for example, Hario that you can no longer see has a virtual body. Can we turn him on? Apparently not. So, while we're trying to figure this out, there's an entire area that we're working on, which is these 3D scans, and it's a bit like photography. So in photography, it's not just taking pictures; it's also thinking about how you develop the picture, which lens you use, and these type of things. And we work in the same way with 3D scans. So the 3D scans are accurate in a way, but they also have a quality which is a bit unreal, that we try to manipulate and make stronger, so that we get this kind of unreal environment where things look glitchy and what we like to call the Chernobyl effect. So you can see, for example, that here the screens, they have this quality of being slightly destroyed. And in the same manner, all kinds of objects. Another thing which happens is, for example, we make the scan, and in the scan there are certain objects, but of course the atelier is a living place, like things get reordered and everything, so we have different objects which appear, which are not there, and so forth. So in the meantime, we got the thing working, and so now you can see Hario in a motion capture suit in the space. And so I'm going to put on the VR headset. Huh? Yeah, that's okay. Oh yeah, it's really good. Well, just to clarify, we're having a kind of top-down view, but we can also have, I hope you can see it because we have a slight calibration issue, but you can see that I now have a camera inside the virtual space that can show me the video image. And so now we can see Hario, the real Hario, through video on top of, as an extra window that we have now in VR to the outside world. So now instead of people on the outside looking in, we have people on the inside looking out. So this is one of the layers that we're trying to exploit in our work to see how can we abstract the notion of VR and what does it mean to be here or there or in between. So, now we're going to show you some scans we have of the delirious departure. The delirious departures project. So for Europalia, they asked us to do a project around train stations, and with Eric we're talking a lot, and we wanted to scan these train stations. So we started scanning them during the lockdown. And during the lockdown, we were scanning these places, and normally when you scan, the algorithm automatically removes everything that moved between two scans. And now it just so happened that people were sitting perfectly still. So they are now in our scan, and we started thinking about this, about how do we use this and what does this mean. And so they have this post-apocalyptic lockdown feeling, and we decided to take this and make it stronger, to magnify it, and to start working with the idea of what does it mean to be sitting there, to be wanting to move, to not being able to travel, and all these different type of notions of what is travel, what are train stations, and the existentialist things which are linked to this. The scans of Brussels North look very nice. We also 3D printed some of the statues. I don't know if Eric showed them before. And can I switch in? Okay. And so in the same way, we scanned Antwerp Central Station, which also looks very beautiful. I can actually see the kitsch that it is. It's a very Renaissance, neo-Renaissance Palazzo style graphics that you get that are made much more clear when you see it in the VR space in 3D. Yes, I apparently have to talk louder, but it's kind of hard with this camera. And as we said before, this is the Hands-on Hamlet project. Maybe Eric, you can talk a bit about the Hands-on Hamlet project? While I film, you have to stay close because the microphone is here.
What can people see?
Yeah.
Can I see?
Jonathan, maybe we can...
Jonathan, can you stand on the other side?
Yeah, yeah. So in
I never
is
gave
an
you
in-between project. In
My
way that
honoured
we,
lord, you know
are
right well
combining
you
video
did.
And
with them,
digital.
words of so sweet
The
breath
spheres
composed have
you
made
see
the things
floating
more
around are
rich.
360 degrees.
Their perfume lost. Take these again, for to the
Images.
noble
So
mind
if you
rich
would
gifts
move as an
wax
immersive,
poor when
if you would
givers
move your
prove
head
unkind.
inside while walking around
There, my
in the
lord.
castle, then you would move into the recorded part, the video recorded part.
Are you honest?
So in that way,
My lord?
you have something
Are you fair?
that is happening in the digital,
means
and
you,
you want
lordship?
them to see how the
That
actors actually were doing it.
If
will
you
see
be
them live,
honest and
then
fair,
you
your
put your head
honesty
into
should
the-
admit no
into the
discourse
video.
to your...
It gives you, how to
Could
say,
beauty, my lord, have
it's-
better commerce
it-
than with honesty?
Advantage is
Aye.
that you have a kind of
Truly.
a deconstructed
For the power of
world.
beauty.
And we think that works well since they both enhance each other. As you might see, the
But
scans
sooner
in 3D
translate
are okay. The scans of the
honesty
actors
from
are
what it is into
are
a
far less.
bod.
You don't see the hands
Then the
moving,
force
things
of
like that.
honesty can
But in this
translate
way,
beauty into his
this way,
likeness. There was a
we're still
time, a
being connected?
paradox, but now the time
you're
gives
still
it
being
clue.
connected. Okay.
okay.
I did love you once.
Yeah, we can keep talking. Wait, let me... So now you could also see, like, for example, there's a bit of evolution. So we can now also have Hario in this environment. And you can see that the interaction that I can have with him is much more immediate. And so which is kind of fascinating about these previous mocaps, which are, as I explained, recordings, is that they do not interact with you. They just kind of seem to live in their own space, but which is not uninteresting. Which is not uninteresting because you start contemplating why you are there, if you are part of this environment or not. So this is kind of the idea, but we are more interested in now because we now just added Harriet to this thing, and the idea is to start layering again different types of interactions and different types of things to question what it is to be in the virtual medium and immersion. So I don't know if you want to add something to that. Okay, so we're going to shut down the YouTube stream and we'll reconnect to the Zoom in 1 minute.